I tell you one thing I'd be interested in your experiences with Payday 2 VR.
I would like to try that. I don't know whether my stomach would like to try that.
Well, that's the thing is how do they handle movement?
Hmm.
Like, is it just a joystick?
I'm presuming that I can just use the controller. Um, that's one way of doing it. Or if you can actually use your hands, I need to watch some.
I believe you actually use your hands
Oh, okay.
because, like, the objective thing's on your wrist,
Then yeah.
and you've got your guns.
So there are a couple of different ways that you can control in VR, and some of them are more nauseating than others. And I must admit, when I'm playing sort of first person shooter style controls, it can get very nauseating very quickly. When
I
I
am
played Rose Squadron with it, that felt natural because I was in a seat, and I'm in a seat in the game, and I'm controlling using a controller, so it felt completely natural, and I could look around whilst I'm steering the ship. That was also a little bit nauseating, but nowhere near as much as first person.
Jelly points out it's funny the difference between games in VR and how they have different effects on the user. Yes, and I'm kind of fascinated by simulation sickness, motion sickness in games. Some people are really prone to it. My girlfriend has a lot of problems with certain games. I got to
Sea of
try Such
Thieves.
Art. Yes, I'm about to touch on Sea of Thieves. I got to try Such Art because I love Such Art. It's an amazing game, and I mean, it's sandbox pretending to be a game. Like no
Mm.
matter what you paint, they'll love it. So it's just have fun, and if you've got a tablet that'll work with it, even better. Um, but there's something about the field of view in that she can handle maybe 5 minutes.
Interesting.
So after you and I tried Sea of Thieves, and they spent so much time getting the water just right, she said, "That looks like fun. I'm going to try playing with you guys. Let me install it and try it out." She installed it, she tried it out, and then she had to switch off the computer and go throw up because they actually gave her seasickness, which she doesn't suffer in real life.
I will say that I've had a similar feeling. If I'm low down on the deck, it can be quite nauseating because they've simulated the sea very well. This is when I had my monitor at least another 6 inches closer, so it filled up a big field of view, and it wasn't seven. It was an ultra wide as well as being closer, and it definitely did make me feel a little bit queasy, not sick, but like a little bit uneasy. But the difference between being down on the deck and up in the crow's nest, that made all the difference. That's why I was always climbing up the crow's nest and staying there.
Yeah. Um, I figured it was just because you didn't want to do any of the work. Wanted me to do it all for you.
Oh, I just found people to fire
Here's a
cannonballs at.
question: Sea of Thieves versus Atlas Water.
Sea of Thieves. I mean,
Which you
I think it's
feels better or is more realistic?
I think it's six of one and half a dozen of the other because Atlas goes for a more realistic look.
My arthritis does not like me doing that. Um, but it's interesting. I'm going to be fascinated to see how Payday 3 shapes out when they shift to a new engine. I know we've said this a couple of weeks running, but in terms of control and movement, how Unreal 4
Yeah,
changes that because I haven't played a lot in Unreal, but if they're doing it in 5, I thought they were doing it in 4.
I don't know. I thought it was
It's
5.
been in development for a couple of years. So,
Okay, you just click update project. Nothing ever goes wrong with that.
oh yeah, that's always fun. Um, I have a feeling things like momentum and weight and you know field of view are going to be so much easier.
Yeah, I I think when it comes to controlling a game like that, I think because it would never had the stealth built in from the very beginning, it was an add-on that it actually
It wasn't so
reflects
much an
that.
add-on; it was sort of an optional way you can play it. Like it was there from the start, but it was never the focus. The focus was objective-based shooter
I mean, let's face it, you can stand up, run past the guard, and they go,
with the right skills.
what was that?"
Yep. Um, in fact, that's the best way to do stealth in that game is to have no armor,
and peg it
Max
around
out
everybody.
your concealment and don't crawl everywhere. Just sprint from point to point.
Yeah, it's almost like an anti-stealth game because of the way you stack your deck and everything. Basically, that's something that it took me a while to understand with the game, is the fact that it's like a not a real time RPG, but it has these RPG elements in it that actually dramatically affect how you play the game
Hmm.
and whether or not people can see you, how accurate you are, and all of that. All
How accurate they are.
yeah, how big a dodge you have, and that took a while for me to grasp, because in some ways it makes very little sense.
Now, if you want weird add-ons in that game, there are some missions where you have to drive
This sounds like an add-on.
using that engine.
Nice.
Very slidey.
That's fine. You power slide everywhere.
I mean, you kind of have to. There's very little feeling of a vehicle's torque. It just, and we're off, and we've stopped.
Oh dear. Well, I remember way back in the day playing Halo on a friend's Xbox, because I never owned an Xbox at the time, and the Warthog, the Jeep thing there, that was so much fun to drive across the map. We used to just me and my friend used to sit down and we used to play. There was like a very long map with two towers either side, and there was a warthog that would spawn, and you just like drive around. But it was so
I know
much
it.
fun, considering that vehicle isn't like the main part of that game. How well made and how well it felt to drive as well.
An interesting one for this is Elite Dangerous, which is a lot of fun to fly around in, especially if you've got a HOTAS system, handle, throttle, and stick, which is we've got the throttle on one hand and the movement on the other. And I had one for a while that had like 20 odd buttons on it. So I didn't have to use the keyboard at all, except to
Yeah.
chat to people. And in standard mode, you could just fly around the ring of a station, avoiding buildings just to practice. It was amazing. But you can enable Newtonian physics, and suddenly it's unflyable. Like, there are a small handful of people who got good enough at Newtonian physics that they would just become YouTube celebrities, because once you can master that, you're basically unstoppable.
Well-
Because the ability to be flying in one direction, flip around, shoot everybody around you, and then keep going in that direction while dodging when you need to, like just keeping that kind of geometry in your mind, was insane. But the control systems felt amazing.
I've played a couple of games that actually had proper physics built in. iWar, I think it was called, an iWar 2. They were very interesting.
Isn't
Interesting
that just like Apple's advertising program?
I think it was called. I mean, chat might be able to let me know if I've got that right. It was there was definitely. I think there was definitely a game called iWar, but it was very physically based. So if you could do the things where you turn around. And the other one, what that I definitely did what you just described in, and it was my go-to thing, was Tachyon the Fringe. It was
Yep.
it was a game where you could just lock it in and just glide sideways past all the enemies.
I know what
Brilliant.
that weird game was with everyone in kinky scuba gear.
What was it?
Warframe.
Warframe. I don't know what Warframe is. I'm going to Google search it right now. It seems like a safe search. I've never seen this game because I'm a recluse. Okay. The main character is a hammerhead shark. Nice.
I just can't bring myself to want to play it, because I just can't get into the aesthetic. Like, I know a lot of people who adore this game. Just can't get into it. I'm glad we solved that. Now I don't sound so insane in this one field.
Okay, it wasn't iWar, it was Independence War. It was a Starship Simulator back in '97. But I think it might have been abbreviated to iWar at some point. I can't remember.
I mean, I remember the original Descent game, and I know they remade it. Well, I haven't played the remake. And the whole 6 degrees of movement, I would get lost, but a lot of people would get seasick.
I had great Descent and games like that. I mean, we're going back to Windows 95 at this point. A lot of fun. Yeah, yeah. I wore it was definitely that. I just had a quick look.